You are listening to the Colts Report with Will Retherford, only on the Central Indiana Sports Report. Colts fans, welcome back to the Central Indiana Sports Report for this week's Colts Report, where we break down the Colts' previous week. We look ahead to the next week and kind of sum up the state of the franchise every week. Of course, we will preview the next game, which the Colts have a week off, and we will always review the previous game, which was a Colts overtime win over the Falcons in Atlanta. And to do that with me, we have, from the Strictly Biased podcast, Will Retherford. Thanks for joining us, Will.
Thank you for having me. A lot to digest in this Colts game from Week 10, so I'm excited to break it down a little bit.
And yesterday, Will, we released Strictly Biased with Will Retherford. We went over the entire NFL Week 10, and you had your reaction, your winners, your losers, the 5 most likely to make the Super Bowl. And we talked about the Colts in that, of course, but give us a quick rundown of what to expect from that one.
There was a clear class division that developed in the NFL this week. I think that you started to see the real, legit contenders break away from maybe playoff teams who have the chance to get there and play meaningful January games, but teams that you don't see competing for conference championships in the Super Bowl. I envision the Colts as a team that has a great chance to be playing late this season if they are able to clean up some of the mistakes that they have in terms of ball security and also their front seven. With that being said, this is still a really good football team who can be really competitive in this AFC down the stretch.
And of course, on Strictly Biased, you got a chance to crow a little bit about the New England Patriots.
Yeah, it's always great to high horse. Let's put it that way. It's always great to be right about something that not a lot of people were right about. I do think you'll be a little surprised to see where they fall in that list, but you'll have to listen to the show to find out what I have to say about them.
And I get to toot my horn about Washington.
You are absolutely right about that. Just absolutely decimated with injuries. With that being said, I think they're looking forward to a rebounding year next year with Jaden Daniels probably coming back fully healthy, as well as having a relatively easy schedule, probably going to have a 3 schedule from the NFC East. I think that you're going to see them be a playoff team and a 12-win team next year.
All right, well, let's talk about the Indianapolis Colts, 8-2, best record in the NFL, with the aforementioned New England Patriots and the Denver Broncos. And from a season point of view, what you really want right now is home field advantage, and you have an opportunity ahead of you because you don't want to go to Denver. You don't want to go to Foxborough. So it's important to get wins down the stretch here.
They definitely have a backloaded schedule. They've played a lot of their, what you would say, easier opponents. It's still any given Sunday in the NFL. The team always has to show up to play. These are professionals who, we saw it, that Saints was a win. They were a 1-win team. They go into Carolina, who is above 500, and they pull off a huge upset. So it can happen to anybody, and I think the Colts' ability to beat teams that they need to beat has been something that you see as a positive. I think Colts teams in the past have struggled a lot with being really good in games where potentially the competition was not as good. So they've set themselves up for success in that way, but they've got a tough stretch coming ahead of them. Obviously, they have the Chiefs, then they have Houston right after, and then Jacksonville. So you've got 3 really meaningful games back-to-back, 3 games that you like to say, hey, this team could go 2-3, but to be quite frank with you, Greg, I think there's a chance this team could go 0-3 and still be a really good football team. So you have to take care of the schedule in front of you, and hopefully the cards shake out where the Colts have home field advantage throughout the AFC playoffs.
Because as dumb as the Jaguars are, they are a talented team. And as bad as the Texans offense has been, that is a talented defense. And of course, you go to Kansas City, and then you go to Seattle, and then you have the 49ers at home, and then the Jaguars and Texans. Again, no gimmies in the second half, but a lot of winnable games.
Absolutely. The only issue, you're going to play that's 7 straight games against teams with winning records. By the time you get to Houston, they're going to be a 500 team. They play Tennessee in week 11. I think you imagine that's a game. To me, the Colts' biggest issue and where they lost this week was Jacksonville really needed to beat Houston for the Colts' sake, because we know Jacksonville's not good enough to compete with this Colts team, but that Houston defense is. And if you let that team stay alive and get hot, that defense is plenty good enough to see them sneak into the playoffs and get to 10 wins, even starting the season 3-5. So there's a lot to not like about their presence in the division, but you got to control what you can control.
Iffy as the Colts offensive line looked last week, and we will get to all of that here pretty soon. Before we get to that, I want to say that I think this bye week comes at a perfect time. You get to integrate Sauce Gardner. You get some guys healthy and could have, if not the best defensive backfield in the NFL, one of, without question.
I think the only team that really comes to mind as a competitive defensive secondary would be Denver. I think when Pat Surtain is healthy, that is a comparable defensive secondary. I do like the Colts 2 corners a little bit more than I think I like Riley Moss as Denver's number 2 corner. With that being said, there's still a lot of integration, I think, with Sauce Gardner to be completely ingratiated with what this defense and Anarumo are trying to do. And they still need to build off some of the, I think, strengths that they played to in that game against Atlanta. The defensive line in particular, I thought, fundamentally kind of changed the way they played. The use of stunts a lot more, run blitzes with Zaire Franklin did help as well to get some tackles for loss. And I think those are things you want to build on to go into Kansas City, to play Houston, to play Jacksonville, because those are all teams with, I think, poor running games, but without DeForest Buckner. You saw Grover Stewart come back. Are you sure if he's 100% in the coming weeks? I guess that is to be determined, but if you have those 2 players missing any meaningful snaps, it does make that run defense a lot more treacherous in terms of watching as a fan, because they can really struggle to stop the run.
We're going to see some games where teams run the ball 80% of the time against the Colts. That's for sure. What it does, though, with the pass rush is allow Zaire Franklin happened to be the guy who got to the quarterback and made the big plays, but they were able to bring the house because they now can trust that defensive backfield, especially against somebody like Michael Penix, to take care of business on the back end. So you can bring everybody from time to time, and they did that a couple times, and Franklin was the guy who got home. And honestly, Zaire Franklin's way better in a pass rush than he is in pass defense, so might as well have him rush the passer.
I agree with that. I think you strengthening that back end definitely allows you to probably bring 5 and be able to cover whatever personnel group the opposing team's offense has. I think you're going to see a lot of probably 11 personnel, 3 receivers against this Colts team, a tight end and a running back incorporated in that passing game. But you now have the horses outside between Kenny Moore, between Sauce Gardner, and between Mooney Ward to really kind of strengthen and allow Cam Bynum and Nick Cross to kind of play that free safety, play that center fielder in the middle of the field and potentially try to make some plays. I think one key element that the Colts did well in Berlin that you want to see them succeed in doing against Mahomes, against Stroud, and against Lawrence is they were really able to contain Penix in the pocket. They did not allow him space to get to the outside to have an opportunity to make throws. There were times that he flushed the pocket, but he was throwing the ball out of bounds. And against a Mahomes, I mean, you're going to play 3 quarterbacks, all of which can be really mobile and can make plays with their legs
all
as well as keep plays alive.
Of mobility.
Absolutely. I know that it's not something that we necessarily talk about, but Mahomes is an incredible scrambler. Stroud has that element to his game. I think of the 3 of them, he prefers to stay in the pocket the most, but you don't want Trevor Lawrence running all over you either, because he absolutely has that in his toolbox in terms of being able to beat teams. The Colts have to do a good job of maintaining rush lane integrity, not getting selfish and trying to bring Leatu Latu, and he does an inside move, and all of a sudden Mahomes is running down the sideline for 20 yards because you're in man coverage and everybody's got their back to the quarterback. That can't happen. They did a good job of that against the Falcons. That is something they need to build on and continue to improve, because that's going to be vital down the stretch.
An underrated piece of this is that Nick Cross has been fantastic.
Nick Cross is an incredible strong safety. His willingness to come down, play in the box. Is he Bob Sanders? No, but boy, he is a hard hitter when he wants to be, and I think that he plays his role to perfection most of the time. He's really kind of a Swiss Army knife, a smaller version of Kyle Hamilton. In Baltimore, he doesn't really stand up and rush the passer a ton, but just his willingness to tackle is something that really helps a weak linebacking core, because he basically is a third linebacker in that instance.
Bynum as well has been good in
absolutely.
All right, well, I swear we're going to talk the topic of the day, which, of course, is Jonathan Taylor, the league MVP. But before we do that, we want to talk about the guys in front of them. Poor week this week, pass blocking for sure for the Colts offensive line. I think there was some confusion was part of that. And I think the Falcons did a good job of mixing things up. In run blocking, here's kind of the story. I thought the run blocking was pretty good against the Falcons initially, and then Will said he didn't think so I went back and looked. My dad also chimed in after listening to our reaction podcast, saying he thought that Jonathan Taylor's vision was the reason for the offensive line looking good in the run blocking. And I came away thinking it was a little of both. I think they fit well together in the run blocking scheme. And I thought Bernhard Raimann was really good in run blocking this week. And I thought Alec Pierce was really good in run blocking this week. And 3 of Jonathan Taylor's biggest runs was a key block from the best tight end in the NFL, Tyler Warren.
Aforementioned in Pierce and Warren, and also I think Michael Pittman on the edge definitely helps strengthen this blocking. I took away about a C+ run blocking game, maybe a C- blocking game altogether. I do think that there is some
I'd say
B pressure. I'd say some of the pressure that was on Daniel Jones, but that's still a good Falcons front four. I think that does kind of get slipped through the cracks because they've been pretty bad the past 3 years. It's much improved. They definitely were able to, I think, mix up some of their pressure packages that they brought. With that being said, I don't think Daniel Jones did a great job of checking this team into quick hitters to potentially neutralize that pass rush. I thought there were a couple times that he just kind of got scared at the line of scrimmage, maybe didn't have enough time on the play clock to make a quick check. I think Tyler Warren makes up for a lot of mistakes that this offensive line can sometimes have in terms of wham blocking. I saw a lot of swinging and missing from Gonzalez this week, where Tyler Warren's kind of playing cleanup crew, coming behind the formation. I think Taylor's vision is impeccable. I think if you give him just a sliver of an inch that he thinks he can go, he's going to be able to get there. Does an average running back run as well behind this offensive line? No. Is this offensive line, I think, mowing people down, road gradering other teams the way they were the first 5-6 weeks? No. I think that they have struggled a little bit more, but they've played some good teams too. So that also should not be, I think, forgotten when this conversation about this Colts offensive line is had. Altogether, they're a really good blocking team when you add in the receivers, and I think that bodes well to Taylor's vision. I think it allows him to be able to get to the edge and have good run lanes where other teams you may not see it. On the 83-yard touchdown run, longest of the NFL season up to this point, you had an entourage of Tyler Warren and Alec Pierce with Jonathan Taylor guiding him to the end zone. exactly what you want to see from your two huge impact players offensively behind Jonathan Taylor. A lot to like, I think a lot to improve on as well.
All right, Will, let's talk about it. You said on our reaction to the Colts win over the Falcons that Jonathan Taylor is the MVP. Of course, we have not had an MVP since 2012 as a running back, which is kind of insane. But Jonathan Taylor definitely deserves to be in the conversation, and right now he is. He is 5-1, trailing only Matthew Stafford and Drake May, which I don't think either one has had near the season that Jonathan Taylor has had. Will, your thoughts?
It's always the argument if the quarterback has the ball the most often in their hands, they have the most impact on the game. Lottie. I think that's important. I think if there's an argument, Drake May probably has one a little bit over Stafford. Drake May is playing with nobodies. Name me one good receiver on that team outside of Stephon Diggs. The O-line's much improved. It's a running back carousel. Trayvon Henderson's just kind of cemented himself. Drake May's played phenomenal. I don't think that should be taken away. But I think Jonathan Taylor's impact and what he's doing is just something that we didn't even see in the Saquon year last year. He's out competing and playing better than Saquon did. To have that neglected from the voters, it probably will be, is a bit disappointing because I don't really think that there's a strong chance he wins the race.
And none of the quarterbacks have had the same kind of season that Josh Allen had last year.
I think that both Lamar and Josh Allen,
right,
their impact on their team was above that of Saquon last year, if we want to be honest. It's
right,
a little easier to be Saquon when Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are on your team, and we can't stack the box with 9 because we have 2 all-pro receivers on the outside. There's a ton of help that other teams have gotten. I think this Colts offensive line and Taylor's marriage, as I said in the previous segment, has been perfect. I think they work really well together. The offensive line gives him enough creases to be really dangerous. They're really good in the run game. And Taylor's vision is impeccable. It's some of the best vision I've seen. I think what's so cool as a Colts fan is you kind of got to see this transition from Marlon Mack, who was tremendously underrated as a running back on that team, and his patience and vision and holes with, I think, offensive lines maybe a little inferior to what the Colts have right now, although really good in the 2018-2019 year. But Jonathan Taylor is just like the 3.0 of that in terms of his patience and vision and willingness to hit holes and explode through the formation. There's a reason that he's top.
You saw it out of college at Wisconsin. He has the ability to make people miss downfield that very few running backs do.
He has incredible contact balance, too. He's like everything that like Alvin Kamara and Saquon and Christian McCaffrey all just kind of bundled into one running back, really, for the most part. And that was a game that featured Bijan Robinson, and Jonathan Taylor completely outplayed him. I think Jonathan Taylor is the better running back. I think Bijan may be the better athlete in terms of what he's able to do as, a
Give Bijan Robinson
like
a year or two, man.
He's in year 3. Jonathan Taylor won the Triple Crown his second year in the league. I get it. That argument can be made. Bijan, I just don't think he's the caliber of traditional running back the way that Jonathan Taylor is. Now, with that being said, Jonathan Taylor's a little bit more of a liability in the pass game. I think he can be utilized, but he's not what I would consider a receiving back in the way that a Devon Achane, a Christian McCaffrey kind of are in that tier, at Kamara, a Bijan. Right. But he's just so much better at being an actual running back that I think he's just I think a tier above everybody right now.
Everybody go listen to Strictly Biased with Will Retherford, which was released yesterday, and to get his take on the entire Week 10 schedule, which was a very telling one, Will.
Absolutely.
Will, there was an elephant in the room, and it wasn't just the pass blocking. It was the passer, and he's not been very good the last couple of weeks, and that's kind of what some of us expected might happen against the better teams, the better defenses. There's still, every week that he's played, have been signs that he's a quality NFL quarterback. Don't get me wrong. we're not seeing the same kind of Daniel Jones we were early in the year. And it's a bit concerning if you're thinking Super Bowl.
The tape was always going to probably make it easier for teams in week 10 and 11 to get a read on what the Colts did really well with Daniel Jones. I think both it kind of expected a bit of a regression. Where he was at was unsustainable, really, even for
MVP leader was insane.
Josh Allen, Lamar, it's unsustainable to play that well for the entire season. Where you're seeing I think the old Daniel Jones creep up, sloppiness with the ball, 3 fumbles this past week, an interception, accounted for 5 turnovers last week. When you're putting the ball on the ground 10 times in 2 weeks, that's an area of concern. In particular, there was a pressure play that the Falcons had dialed up in the third quarter where Daniel Jones has Michael Pittman open with a receiver playing off coverage, and he bails to the right side, doesn't have a receiver open, and he's just carrying the ball with one arm and gets sacked.
He saw green pastures in front of him. That's what I believe, and he just misjudged it. You're right, Pittman was open, and he should have thrown the ball.
It's just one of those plays where it's like in January, that play happens. That's the difference between winning a game and losing a game, is by giving the team another possession. That can't happen. From any quarterback, it's unacceptable because it just demonstrated kind of everything that's bad about the quarterback taking off the ball. There's always the opportunity for a fumble, especially if you're not high and tight, 2 hands on the football. Running it, he's carrying it with one arm. It was just lackadaisical, lazy, and it's, I think, something in the film and the self-scouting the Colts are going to be doing this week that you're going to see, I think, kind of change and tinker a little bit, because it has to for this team to be successful.
I believe so, and the offense hasn't been creative enough the last few weeks. Will, if people didn't like that, then they don't like good podcasting. That was fantastic, as was Strictly Biased with Will Retherford, which we released yesterday. Everybody go listen to that. Thanks for your time, Will.
Yep, thank you.
And thank you for listening. Always appreciate it. Please do us a huge favor and share this podcast and Will's Strictly Biased podcast with a Colts fan, an NFL fan in your life, and help us spread the word that the Central Indiana Sports Report is here talking about sports every single day. Thanks again, Will.
Yep, thank you.
The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.